the signal that brought them to us. For centuries, humanity stared into the sky and wondered if it was alone. Poets wrote about distant stars, scientists studied their light, and children dreamed of worlds beyond Earth. Yet no matter how much we searched, the universe remained silent. The stars shone brightly, but they never answered back. That silence became normal. Comforting, even. People stopped expecting anything to respond. Until the night the signal arrived. It was not dramatic at first. No lights in the sky. No strange objects hovering over cities. No alarms ringing across the world. The signal began as a faint irregularity buried deep within the endless noise of space. A tiny disturbance, barely noticeable, drifting through a sea of cosmic static. At the Arecibo II Observatory, high in the mountains, the night shift was always quiet. The world slept while machines listened. Dr. Elena Morris sat alone in the control room, sipping cold coffee, her eyes tired from hours of monitoring data streams. She had spent most of her career listening to nothing. Static. Pulsars. Natural cosmic echoes. Always predictable. That night felt no different. Until one pattern refused to disappear. Elena leaned closer to her screen. A narrowband signal appeared again and again, repeating at precise intervals. It wasn't random. It wasn't noise. Her heartbeat quickened as she adjusted the filters, isolating the source. The signal sharpened, clean and deliberate. She whispered to herself, "That's impossible." The signal was too structured to be natural. It pulsed in mathematical precision, forming sequences that hinted at intention. This was not a star dying or a galaxy colliding. This was something else. Someone else. Elena checked the coordinates. The signal came from a region of space considered empty. No known stars. No planets. Nothing worth noticing. And yet, something was calling out from there. She immediately contacted her supervisor, Dr. Raj Patel, who answered groggily from his home. When Elena explained what she was seeing, his voice sharpened with alertness. "Record everything," he said. "Do not announce this to anyone yet. I'm on my way." Within an hour, the observatory buzzed with quiet urgency. Screens filled with data. Algorithms ran non-stop. Every possible natural explanation was tested and rejected. The signal continued, steady and unwavering, as if waiting to be understood. By dawn, they all knew the truth. This signal was artificial. News of the discovery spread faster than anyone could stop it. Despite attempts at secrecy, leaked data reached private researchers, then universities, then governments. By the end of the week, the world knew that Earth had received something extraordinary. Humanity had been contacted. At first, reactions were cautious. Scientists urged patience. Governments urged calm. Religious leaders urged prayer. Social media erupted with theories ranging from hope to panic. Some people celebrated. Others feared invasion. Many simply didn't know what to feel. The signal itself did not contain words. It carried numbers. Patterns. Mathematical constants recognized across civilizations. Prime numbers. Geometric ratios. Universal truths. A message designed to say only one thing. We are intelligent. And we know you are too. Decoding teams formed across the globe. Linguists, mathematicians, physicists, and computer scientists worked together day and night. The signal was not long, but it was deep. Every repetition revealed more complexity hidden beneath the surface. After weeks of analysis, a chilling realization emerged. The signal wasn't just a greeting. It was a response. Somewhere in the archives of human history, scientists uncovered a forgotten transmission sent decades earlier. A powerful broadcast aimed at deep space, carrying Earth's location, biology, and cultural markers. At the time, it was considered harmless. A hopeful gesture. Now, that gesture had been answered. The signal's timing suggested something terrifying and awe-inspiring at the same time. Whatever sent it had received our message long ago. And they had already been on their way. This was not first contact. This was confirmation. Astronomers recalculated distances, speeds, and energy requirements. If the senders were traveling, they were using technology far beyond human understanding. Faster than light, or something close to it. There was no way to stop them. No way to hide. Humanity could only wait. Governments held emergency meetings. Military forces moved quietly. Satellites were redirected to watch the skies. Yet nothing unusual appeared. Days passed. Weeks passed. The signal continued, unchanged, like a heartbeat echoing across the cosmos. Then, One night, the signal changed. A new pattern emerged. Shorter, stronger, urgent. The message was evolving. Artificial intelligence systems were brought in to assist with interpretation. One AI model detected a shift in frequency modulation that resembled a countdown. Not in seconds or minutes, but in astronomical units. Distances shrinking. "They are getting closer," Elena said softly, staring at the screen. No one replied. The room was silent except for the hum of machines and the quiet fear settling into every human heart. Across the world, people began to sense something was coming. Animals acted strangely. Birds changed migration paths. Deep space telescopes detected subtle distortions, like ripples forming ahead of an unseen wave. Something massive was moving through space, and it was aimed directly at Earth. As panic slowly replaced curiosity, a new question haunted humanity. Why us? Why now? And what did they want? The signal, still repeating endlessly, offered no answers. Only a promise that the universe was no longer distant and silent. It was watching. And it was almost here. When the news of the signal reached the public, the world changed overnight. Ordinary life fractured under the weight of anticipation. Airports were crowded, not with tourists, but with people desperate to flee cities. Stock markets fluctuated wildly, though governments insisted there was no immediate threat. Scientists became the celebrities of a new era, revered and feared for holding pieces of a cosmic puzzle no one could fully understand. Elena and her team at Arecibo Observatory were suddenly in the spotlight. Reporters and media crews crowded the facility, desperate for a glimpse of the women and men who had first heard the whisper from the stars. Every word Elena spoke was broadcast, analyzed, and debated. Every gesture she made was scrutinized. She had always worked quietly, driven by curiosity, but now she carried the hopes and fears of the entire planet. In classrooms, children drew pictures of enormous ships in the sky, and teachers tried to explain why adults were so anxious. Religious leaders preached sermons interpreting the signal as a divine sign, while skeptics dismissed it as a hoax or a natural phenomenon we did not yet understand. Online forums became battlegrounds of speculation. Humanity was both united and divided in its obsession with a message it could not fully interpret. Governments formed councils to coordinate global responses. Leaders argued over security protocols, defense strategies, and the morality of trying to communicate back. A single decision, whether to respond or remain silent, felt like it could determine the survival of the species. Despite all the chaos, Elena returned to her work with relentless focus. She had to understand the signal, even if understanding it terrified her. Each day brought new patterns, new repetitions, and subtle changes that hinted at intelligence far beyond human comprehension. She began to realize that this was not a simple communication. It was a series of instructions, perhaps even a guide. At night, she dreamt of the signal. Not as numbers or waves, but as shapes, geometric forms that twisted and grew beyond the limits of imagination. She could feel them, not with her eyes, but with her mind. Something about them felt alive. Meanwhile, the public grew restless. Rumors spread that the beings behind the signal were already on their way, some faster than human science could calculate. Panic turned to fear, and fear into chaos. Military forces were put on alert worldwide. Satellites were recalibrated, space telescopes trained endlessly toward the origin of the signal. Cities prepared for evacuation as a precaution, though no one knew what they were preparing for. Yet in all this fear, there were pockets of hope. Scientists, visionaries, and dreamers argued that the arrival could be the greatest opportunity humanity had ever faced. Contact with a civilization older and more advanced than ours could unlock knowledge, technology, and wisdom beyond our wildest imagination. Elena received encrypted communications from colleagues in Japan, Russia, and South Africa. Teams were forming across continents, sharing data, working together in a way the world had never seen. Humanity had become united in purpose, at least in the pursuit of understanding. Then came the first undeniable proof. A deep space array in Antarctica detected a shift in the signal's trajectory. It wasn't just being transmitted, it was guiding something. Something vast. Instruments could not measure the size, only the energy it emitted. The readings suggested a mass larger than any known asteroid, moving faster than anything humanity had ever built. Panic surged again. Military strategists argued over whether to attempt defense or observation. Scientists begged for patience. Politicians demanded answers they could not provide. The world teetered between hope and fear, like standing on the edge of a cliff with no way to step back. And then the sky changed. It started subtly, in a corner of the horizon. Lights, dull at first, then brightening, appeared above the oceans. Across continents, people looked up and saw them. Streaks of light moving with impossible precision. No sound reached the ground, yet a collective shiver ran through every human watching. The ships were coming. Elena stood at the observatory, her hands trembling as she watched the feed. The signal continued, pulsating in harmony with the approaching lights. It was a heartbeat, synchronized across the void of space, reaching out to humanity. Somewhere in the world, people fell to their knees. Some screamed in terror. Others wept in awe. And Elena whispered to herself, "We're not alone. We were never alone." The countdown embedded in the signal accelerated. The beings were closer than anyone imagined. And with every pulse, the message became clearer, not in words, but in intent. They were coming. And humanity would have to face the moment it had dreamed of for centuries. The world waited in tense silence. Every telescope trained, every radar scanning, every satellite tracking. But nothing could fully prepare humanity for what came next. It began over the Pacific Ocean, just before dawn. A massive object emerged from the horizon, moving with a grace that defied physics as humans knew it. At first, it looked like a comet, bright, shimmering, and immense, but then its form became clear. It was a ship, unlike anything ever imagined. Smooth and organic in shape, it glowed faintly, as if alive. It didn't roar through the sky. It drifted, yet its speed was terrifyingly fast. Military forces scrambled jets and missiles, but every attempt to intercept it failed. The ships did not respond to weapons. They did not flee. They moved with purpose, as if Earth itself were part of their plan. Elena watched from Arecibo Observatory, breathless. "They are aware of us," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They know exactly where we are." The object hovered above the ocean, silent, massive, and almost beautiful. Then, slowly, more emerged. Ships of various shapes and sizes poured from the signal's origin point, spreading across the skies. The world looked on in awe and horror. No nation could claim this as an attack, no army could stop it. Humanity was utterly powerless. Yet, despite the fear, there was no aggression. The beings aboard these ships did not fire weapons. There were no explosions, no energy beams, no destruction. Their presence alone was enough to terrify. But there was also a strange calm, a sense that they were observing, studying, not destroying. 4 days, the ships remained in orbit, some dipping close to cities, others floating over oceans and deserts. Cameras captured glimpses of their forms, sleek, iridescent, with surfaces that seemed to ripple like liquid metal. Shadows moved beneath them, hinting at creatures within. No sound reached the ground, but the presence was overwhelming. Scientists attempted to communicate using the signal. They sent encoded responses, mathematical proofs, images of Earth, music, and light. The ships responded instantly, not with words, but by altering their lights and movements. Patterns formed in the sky, beautiful and complex, like a language made of geometry and rhythm. It became clear. They were teaching, or perhaps inviting humanity to learn. The signal had been a bridge, and now the bridge was fully visible. Governments tried to control the chaos on Earth. Cities were evacuated, air traffic grounded, and military forces placed in defensive positions. Yet there was no panic in all people, only a mixture of fear and awe. Some ventured outside to witness the event firsthand, taking videos, photographs, and stories that would last generations. Elena, however, remained inside the observatory. She was too fascinated to leave. Every pulse of the signal, every movement of the ships, made her feel both insignificant and infinitely connected. She knew that humanity was witnessing history, but she also sensed that something far greater was unfolding, something no one could fully comprehend yet. Then came the first direct encounter. One of the largest ships descended slowly over the Amazon rainforest. Its landing created no shockwave, no crash, only a soft displacement of air, like the movement of water. And then, from the ship, a figure emerged. Tall, slender, and luminous. Its body seemed composed of shifting light and energy, its movements fluid and deliberate. It stepped onto the ground, and the world seemed to pause. Animals fled, winds stilled, and the humans watching from a distance held their breath. The figure raised what could be considered a hand, and a wave of calm seemed to sweep over the forest. Elena's eyes widened. Its Communicating, she said. Not with words, but with thought. The figure transmitted images, emotions, and knowledge directly into the minds of those nearby. It showed the history of the stars, civilizations rising and falling, and a network of life spanning countless worlds. Humanity had only glimpsed the surface of reality, but now the depth and scale were revealed. Yet alongside the wonder was a warning. The beings conveyed that the universe was vast and filled with danger. Civilizations that failed to unite and understand were often destroyed, absorbed, or forgotten. They had come because humanity had signaled intelligence, but the signal also revealed vulnerability. Elena realized something profound. The beings were not merely visitors. They were guardians, explorers, and teachers. Their arrival was not conquest, but an invitation, and a challenge. Across the globe, people watched the events unfold. The signal that had begun as a faint whisper in space had brought the universe to Earth's doorstep. Humanity had entered a new era. An era of knowledge, but also of responsibility. And the first question that lingered in every human mind was the same. What would we do next? After the initial arrival, humanity struggled to comprehend the reality of the visitors. Their ships floated above oceans, deserts, and cities, yet no one could see them entirely. They shimmered, sometimes translucent, sometimes solid. Observers reported shapes shifting in impossible ways, as if the laws of physics bent around them. Elena and her team worked tirelessly to interpret the new patterns in the signal. Every pulse now carried additional layers, images, and concepts far beyond human comprehension. Mathematics became art. Light became language. And with each passing day, the beings revealed more about themselves, not in words, but in understanding. It became clear that these entities were not bound by time in the way humans understood it. Their perspective stretched across millennia, their knowledge spanning galaxies. They communicated history as a living experience, allowing Elena and other humans to feel the rise and fall of civilizations across the cosmos. Civilizations that had vanished from existence left echoes in the patterns they now transmitted. One evening, while monitoring the signal, Elena experienced a vision unlike any she had before. She saw herself, not in the present, but as part of a vast network of consciousness spanning the universe. Time seemed irrelevant. Past, present, and future coexisted. She felt joy, loss, discovery, and curiosity from countless beings across countless worlds. She understood, with sudden clarity, that these visitors were more than explorers. They were keepers of knowledge, stewards of civilizations, and guides for those capable of growth. Yet alongside this wonder came unease. The visions hinted at dangers beyond comprehension. Civilizations that had failed, consumed by their own aggression, ignorance, or fear. The beings had survived through understanding, unity, and wisdom. Humanity was at a crossroads. Their arrival was an opportunity, but also a test. Global leaders sought answers, but the visitors did not communicate directly to governments. Instead, the signal reached those who sought understanding, not control. Scientists, scholars, and visionaries became intermediaries between Earth and the beings. They shared the insights humanity could comprehend, and slowly, people began to change. Old rivalries seemed petty in the face of the universe's vastness. Fear gave way to curiosity. Hatred gave way to cooperation. Then came the first attempt at physical interaction. A team of carefully chosen humans, including Elena, was invited to approach one of the ships. The vessel descended in a quiet valley, far from populated areas. Its surface seemed liquid, reflecting the world around it yet remaining impossible to touch. When they entered, they found themselves in a space that defied dimensions. Corridors stretched infinitely, yet led to chambers filled with light, color, and forms that seemed alive. Inside, the beings appeared in forms humans could perceive, tall, radiant, and fluid, with faces that suggested intelligence without rigidity. They communicated directly through thought and feeling. There were no words, only understanding. Emotions, concepts, and knowledge flowed from them to the humans. Elena felt joy, fear, curiosity, and responsibility all at once. They revealed that their civilization had existed for millions of years. They had witnessed the birth and death of countless species. Some civilizations thrived and expanded, others vanished. They explained that the universe operated on principles of balance, cooperation, and understanding. Knowledge without empathy was dangerous. Power without wisdom was self-destruction. The visitors did not demand obedience, nor did they impose their will. Instead, they offered guidance. Humanity had signaled intelligence, but also potential danger. Their arrival was both a gift and a warning. You have the capacity to join the network of civilizations, one thought reached Elena directly. But you must choose carefully. Unity, understanding, and wisdom are required. Aggression, fear, and division will lead to ruin. Elena returned from the encounter transformed. She could no longer see the world as before. The problems that had seemed insurmountable, the wars, the greed, the divisions, now felt small, yet urgent. Humanity had been given a chance to evolve, and failure was not an option. Back on Earth, others began to feel the shift. Knowledge spread. Scientific discoveries accelerated. Conflicts were paused, if only temporarily, as people realized the stakes were far beyond their immediate concerns. The visitor's presence was not a threat, but a mirror. Humanity's future depended on what it reflected in that mirror. And while the world changed slowly, one question remained in Elena's mind. Were humans ready to meet the universe on its own terms? The signal continued to pulse, ever present, reminding them that the beings were patient, but not infinite. Time was a gift, and a test. As humanity adjusted to the presence of the visitors, the questions grew louder. Why had they come? What did they truly want? Their guidance was gentle, indirect, almost like a teacher giving lessons without forcing answers. Yet beneath their calm presence, there was an undeniable urgency. Elena and a group of scientists continued to study the signal. The patterns now included sequences that suggested instructions, blueprints for energy systems, advanced technologies, and sustainable ways to harness natural forces. It was knowledge far beyond human capability, but they had not given it all at once. Humanity had to understand, learn, and evolve to receive it fully. One evening, while decoding a particularly complex pattern, Elena realized the visitors' true purpose. They had not come to conquer, nor simply to observe. They were here to save. Save humanity, not from themselves, but from what the universe would inevitably bring. The signal revealed cosmic threats, massive celestial bodies on collision courses, energetic storms capable of destroying planets, and civilizations that had failed to survive such dangers. The visitors had survived because they learned to anticipate, to cooperate, and to share knowledge. They extended this opportunity to humanity. Yet there was a catch. The gift of survival required more than passive reception. Humans had to change. Old systems, conflicts, and fears had to be set aside. Cooperation was not optional, it was necessary. Technology without wisdom, power without responsibility, would lead to extinction. Elena felt the weight of it all. The visitors were patient, but they were not infinite. Humanity had one chance to rise to the occasion. Governments were informed, but the message was difficult to convey. Leaders struggled to communicate the urgency without inciting panic. The public, however, was already aware. The ships in the sky, the shimmering figures, the pulsing signal, no one could ignore it. Fear and hope coexisted in every mind. Then, an event changed everything. One of the largest ships descended above the Sahara Desert. Unlike before, it did not remain stationary. It opened a vast, shimmering gateway. A beam of light touched the ground, and from it, small, intricate devices emerged, machines designed to interact with Earth's environment. They began purifying water, stabilizing weather patterns, and repairing ecological damage. It was subtle at first, almost imperceptible, but the changes were real and undeniable. Elena realized the magnitude of what was happening. The visitors were not only sharing knowledge, they were demonstrating humanity's potential. They had given a vision of what Earth could become, but it required understanding, discipline, and unity to fully realize. In a global broadcast, the signal itself shifted, no longer just mathematical patterns, but a direct message, translated by advanced algorithms into human comprehension. It was simple, yet profound. We come not as conquerors, but as guides. Learn, unite, and survive. Fail, and the universe will remember you as it has remembered others. The message resonated across continents. Fear gave way to action. Nations began cooperating on unprecedented levels. Conflicts paused, treaties were signed, and scientists from around the world worked together to interpret the visitors' knowledge. Humanity was beginning to rise to the challenge. Yet even as progress unfolded, Elena sensed that the test was not complete. The visitors had not revealed everything. Their patience was immense, but it was not infinite. Every choice humanity made now would shape its future, not only on Earth but across the stars. Late one night, Elena returned to the observatory alone. The signal pulsed softly on the screen, almost as if it were alive. She whispered to herself, "They are showing us the way, but will we follow it?" For the first time, she understood the truth. Survival was not guaranteed. Knowledge could be given, guidance could be offered, but the responsibility belonged entirely to humanity. The visitors had brought their presence, their wisdom, and their hope. Now, the rest was up to Earth. And in the quiet of the observatory, Elena felt both awe and fear. The universe was no longer distant and silent. It was watching, waiting, and judging. Humanity now stood at a crossroads. The visitors had revealed themselves, their wisdom, and their intentions. They had offered guidance, tools, and visions of what Earth could become. Yet the question remained: would humans rise to the occasion, or fall back into old patterns of fear, greed, and division? Across the globe, reactions varied. Some nations embraced cooperation, forming councils to implement the visitors' instructions. New research facilities were established to study the advanced technologies, from energy systems to environmental stabilization devices. People who once argued over petty disputes now collaborated on a planetary scale. But not everyone agreed. Some feared that the visitors' influence threatened human freedom. Militias, political factions, and extremist groups rejected the changes, claiming that surrendering to alien guidance was a betrayal of humanity. Propaganda spread quickly, sowing doubt and mistrust. Elena watched the tension unfold from Arecibo. The signal continued, pulsing with calm precision, as if urging humanity to act. The visitors did not interfere directly, they allowed humans to make their own decisions. Their presence was a mirror, showing both potential and flaws. The moment of decision arrived when the visitors activated a larger, more tangible demonstration of their power. Above the Atlantic, a massive energy structure appeared, glowing with a radiant light that defied description. It generated clean energy for entire continents, stabilized climate anomalies, and projected messages of unity and knowledge. It was a clear offer: embrace progress, or be left behind. Global leaders convened in an unprecedented summit. Nations debated openly for the first time in history. Arguments raged, but the scale of the visitors' technology and the urgency of the signal silenced petty disputes. Humanity had to choose a path: unity or division, understanding or destruction. Elena was invited to address the summit. She spoke not as a scientist alone, but as a witness to what lay beyond the stars. "They have shown us the universe as it truly is," she said. "We are not alone, and we are fragile. Our future is in our hands. We can choose fear and risk extinction, or we can choose unity, understanding, and growth, and take our first real step toward becoming a true civilization." Her words echoed across continents. Millions listened, millions more watched through broadcasts. For the first time, humanity felt the weight of collective responsibility. The world held its breath. Then, slowly, change began. Nations agreed to share technology openly. Conflicts paused, treaties were signed, and research accelerated. Education became a priority, emphasizing not just knowledge, but empathy and cooperation. Cities adapted to the new energy systems, and the environment began to recover. Humanity was learning, and the visitors observed with quiet approval. Yet the transformation was not immediate or perfect. Resistance persisted. Old habits of suspicion and rivalry still threatened to undo progress. But for the first time, there was hope that the lessons of the visitors could be understood and applied. Elena continued her work, decoding the signal, learning from the visitors, and sharing insights. She realized that humanity's choice was not a single moment, but a process, a continuous effort to rise above fear, embrace knowledge, and work together. The visitors themselves remained enigmatic. They never revealed their full purpose or limits. Their message was simple: survive, learn, and grow. The rest was up to humanity. One night, as Elena watched the ships drift across the sky, she felt the weight of her place in history. She whispered, "We have the chance, now it's our turn." Above, the signal pulsed steadily, like a heartbeat. It was a reminder, a promise, and a challenge. Humanity had made its choice, but the universe would continue to watch. And far beyond Earth, the stars waited. The initial excitement of contact began to fade, replaced by the difficult realities of change. Humanity had made its choice to follow the guidance of the visitors, but progress came with sacrifices. The knowledge and technology provided were immense, Yet understanding and using them responsibly proved far harder than anyone anticipated. In cities around the world, new energy systems replaced old ones, but infrastructure had to be rebuilt. Jobs became obsolete. Economies shifted. People resisted the changes they had once demanded. Tensions flared between those eager to adapt and those clinging to familiar ways. Elena witnessed the first real costs. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to integrate the visitors' technology, often risking their health in experimental trials. Accidents occurred, some minor, some devastating. Entire regions were temporarily destabilized as advanced systems were tested. Humanity had been offered a shortcut to knowledge, but shortcuts demanded caution and responsibility. Moreover, not all nations embraced cooperation. Rogue groups attempted to manipulate the technology for personal gain, creating conflicts and disasters. The visitors, though powerful, did not intervene directly. Their presence remained a silent guide, a reminder that humanity must act responsibly or face consequences. Elena spent long nights at the observatory, decoding new layers of the signal. The visitors had begun transmitting ethical frameworks, lessons in stewardship, and warnings of cosmic dangers. One segment of the signal depicted civilizations that had failed to heed guidance, showing entire planets abandoned, consumed, or destroyed. It was a stark warning. Knowledge without wisdom could lead to extinction. Meanwhile, the environment began to recover in visible ways. Oceans became cleaner, deserts slowly bloomed with life, and atmospheric disturbances calmed. Yet these changes required constant care and understanding. Humanity could not simply rely on the visitors' presence. They had to act. The cost was not only technological or environmental. Social and political structures were challenged. Governments had to abandon secrecy in favor of transparency. Military hierarchies were reproposed for planetary cooperation. Education systems were overhauled. Humans had to confront their own flaws: greed, fear, prejudice, and short-sightedness. Despite the challenges, moments of profound beauty emerged. Cities lit by clean energy glowed like constellations. People collaborated on global projects that once would have seemed impossible. Knowledge spread faster than ever, and humanity began to glimpse what life could become when guided by wisdom rather than power. Yet the ultimate cost was deeper. It demanded a transformation of human consciousness. To truly follow the visitors' guidance, people had to overcome ego, embrace empathy, and act with foresight. Every choice mattered. Every action had consequences not just for the individual, but for the planet and its place in the universe. Elena realized that this was the true purpose of the visitors. Their presence was not about technology alone. It was about shaping humanity into a civilization capable of survival and growth. They had given a gift, yes, but it was a gift that required responsibility, courage, and sacrifice. One evening, as she gazed at the stars, Elena felt the visitors' presence in a way she had not before. The signal pulsed like a heartbeat, steady and patient. It was a reminder that the universe was vast, ancient, and indifferent, but also full of possibility. Humanity's survival was not guaranteed, yet it was now in their hands. The cost of contact was clear. Progress demanded sacrifice, unity demanded effort, and survival demanded wisdom. Humanity had chosen to rise, but the journey had only just begun. And somewhere beyond the sky, the visitors watched. Not as conquerors, but as guardians, waiting to see if Earth could truly meet the universe on its own terms. Years passed since the arrival of the visitors. The first awe, fear, and uncertainty gave way to a new era of understanding. Humanity had changed, slowly, painfully, but undeniably. The knowledge and guidance of the visitors had reshaped societies, technology, and consciousness. Cities now gleamed with energy drawn from the stars. Machines once thought impossible hummed quietly, performing tasks that restored the planet and elevated human life. Diseases that had plagued humanity were mitigated through advanced medicine, while ecosystems flourished as humans learned to balance growth with stewardship. Yet the greatest transformation was not technological. It was in the hearts and minds of people. Education emphasized empathy, cooperation, and foresight. Conflict became rarer as nations and communities learned the value of working together. Individuals began to measure success not by personal gain but by contribution to the whole. Humanity was no longer fragmented, it was learning to think as one species. Elena, now older and seasoned by years of observing both humans and visitors, walked through one of the restored forests on the outskirts of the city. Birds sang, rivers ran clear, and light danced across the canopy. She paused, looking up at the sky, remembering the first time the signal had pulsed through the darkness. The visitors remained in orbit, still distant, still mysterious. They had not imposed their will, they had guided. Their presence was a constant reminder that humanity's choices mattered, not just for the planet, but for the species itself. They had brought knowledge, power, and possibility, but the responsibility had always been human. And humanity had risen to meet it. Children now grew up learning about the stars as if they were neighbors. Art, science, and philosophy intertwined with lessons from the visitors. The story of the signal, the message that had first whispered through space, became a cornerstone of culture. It was a reminder that curiosity, courage, and unity could change the course of history. Elena smiled as she watched a group of students experimenting with energy fields in a nearby lab. They were building, learning, and dreaming, all under the quiet guidance of lessons the visitors had encoded in the signal. She realized that the true gift had never been technology or power. It had been the chance to become better, wiser, and capable of survival in a universe that would not wait. The sky pulsed faintly that night, the signal still reaching Earth, still reminding humanity that they were part of something greater. And humanity listened, understood, and continued to grow. The beings from beyond the stars had come not to conquer, not to judge, but to awaken. They had brought knowledge, guidance, and hope. And in return, humanity had given the universe something new, a civilization learning to rise, to care, and to endure. For the first time in history, Earth was ready, not just to exist, but to join the network of intelligent life. And as the stars shone brightly above, Elena whispered softly, "We are no longer alone. And we will not fail." The signal continued to pulse, a heartbeat across the cosmos. Humanity had answered it. And the universe had listened.